Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Extra Gent Scents. I know just what we need. Another Elixir fragrance, but this time, not just any Elixir fragrance, but an Elixir fragrance that is a clone of an Elixir fragrance. That sounds perfect to me, just perfect. And as luck would have it, that's exactly what we've got today. We're taking a look at Maison Alhambra's Salvo Elixir, which is of course a clone of Sauvage Elixir, in case you couldn't tell by the presentation style over here, and the name, I guess. So, for the longest time, the go-to Big Daddy clone of Sauvage Elixir, most people would probably say is Lattafa's Assad. And then there's also Fragrance World Enigma Un, which is very good as well. And this one I have seen off and on for a little while now, but hadn't gotten around to purchasing until recently. You can find this one online for about 25 bucks, sometimes a little bit less, so it is on the cheaper side of things as far as clone fragrances go. And in case you're interested in this one, I'll go ahead and link it in the description below. Feel free to check it out down there, along with Sauvage Elixir also, though this is way more expensive. Oh, that's a perfect seg! You know what would make things less expensive? These codes! Yeah, if you use these codes at any of these websites, you'll save yourself some dough, save yourself some money. Fragflex.com, GS11, 11% off across the whole website, Gents 10 and Gents 20 at Max Aroma for 10 or 20% off, depends on the fragrance. And Twisted Lily, Gents 10, 10% off, Triple Traders, Gent Scents, 10% off. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the presentation here and see how it looks compared to Sauvage Elixir. Yeah. It's pretty close. So here is the front of the box. You've got the name of the fragrance, the concentration, which is Eau de Parfum here, and the size, 60 milliliters. So the same size that Sauvage Elixir originally came out in. On the side, you have your Maison Alhambra sticker of authenticity. Got the name of the house up top. Bunch of information on the back, including your ingredients. And then on the bottom, your badge code and barcode. It says mine was manufactured 10/20/23. And here we have the bottle, very Sauvage-esque in look. You have the name of the fragrance, name of the house on the front there. Little sticker on the bottom, and the cap here, magnetic. Check that out. Not a fantastic magnet. As you can see there, the bottle is pretty heavy, so you have to be kind of careful picking it up. You try to pick it up quickly. Yeah, there we go. That will happen. But one thing with this is the magnetic cap, it does the little twist-a-rooney. That's what the Sauvage caps do. So when the magnets aren't lined up, it pops itself up and then comes back down, which you can see right there. Actually, that matters nothing at all, but I like to point it out. Now, these are both 60 milliliter bottles, and when you look at them side by side, you may think, well, how is that so? Well, it is so because there is like an inch at least of just straight up glass at the bottom of this bottle. It is thick there at the bottom. So if you move this up, yeah, basically, from this point down on the Salvo bottle, that's just all glass. I don't know why they didn't just go ahead and, chop that down and make it look more size appropriate, but they decided not to. Let's go ahead and share a spray here of good old Salvo Elixir. Missed the first one. The atomizer is okay on this one, but it's obviously nowhere near as good as Sauvage Elixir. Let's go ahead and spray this one out. Ooh, yeah. So while you do get the magnetic cap and the bottle looks okay, you don't get the super sweet atomizer on Salvo Elixir. So how does Salvo Elixir stack up when compared to the almighty Sauvage Elixir? Well, I'm gonna tell you straight up front here, right off the bat, Salvo Elixir is very, very close to Sauvage Elixir. So when I go over some of these differences that I pick up between the two, understand that we're kind of splitting hairs. There's not a huge difference between these. When you smell Salvo Elixir in the air, it will immediately remind you of Sauvage Elixir, and I would actually say that Salvo Elixir is probably a little bit closer to the overall scent profile of Sauvage Elixir compared to Assad. Because of course Lattafa and Maison Alhambra are ultimately the same company, just different, houses underneath the same company, if that makes any sense. Subsidiary. So you could say Salvo Elixir is, in a way, their other fragrance that's smelling like Sauvage Elixir, which they've done before. Lattafa Kamra, for example, and then you have Kismet Angel. So it's not something that they've never done before. So with that out of the way, that these are both very similar, there are still some differences that you can pick up. When you first spray Salvo Elixir on, to me, it's a little bit sweeter than Sauvage Elixir is. So you've got a little more sweetness that comes off the top with Salvo, and then Sauvage Elixir is a little more rich. slightly more bold when you first spray it on. Again, very close, scent structure, extremely similar, but Sauvage Elixir, you can tell when you spray it on that there's a little more body to it, a little more depth to it. So whereas Salvo has this kind of sweetness that peaks up right at the beginning, Sauvage Elixir opens up like this. So you get the lavender, nutmeg, cinnamon, cardamom, those spices, that warm spiciness, that enveloping almost warmth and woodiness from the base, that licorice kind of all just comes up, right? Very full-bodied. Salvo, when you smell it, and maybe this doesn't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't feel quite as rich. Again, it's got more sweetness, you pick up that spice, you pick up that woodiness, but it's not quite as rich, not as elegant. Also, Salvo is not quite as strong as Sauvage Elixir. It still performs well, performs really nicely. I don't think too many people are gonna complain about it, but Sauvage Elixir is a monster, right? This thing just projects forever, lasts forever. It's just one of the more powerful designer fragrances that have come out in years. So very few fragrances are gonna be able to hang with that, especially when you're talking about a fragrance here that is, you know, a quarter the price of that one. So Salvo Elixir has good performance, it lasts a good amount of time, projects well. It's not quite there with Sauvage Elixir. And part of that is also gonna be the atomizer. This is not the same amount of fragrance being, you know, sprayed out as this. So yeah, the Salvo Elixir atomizer is not as good, but even if you spray like exact equal amounts, if you could, Sauvage Elixir still has a little more push to it. So that's the opening, but then pretty quickly that sweetness kind of steps back for Salvo, and you get more of the lavender coming out, and then that woodiness as well. But I would say that Sauvage Elixir has more of that licorice kind of feel, that again, additional something that makes it Sauvage Elixir. So this is one of those deals where if you spray Salvo Elixir on and you don't spray on Sauvage Elixir, then when you smell this, you're gonna be like, that is dead on, that is dead on. And then you spray them on side by side and you go, it's a little different, just a little bit. For me, Salvo Elixir settles more into that almost ambery, slightly vanilla, sandalwood and lavender as it dries. Whereas with Sauvage Elixir, you get, again, that licorice that comes out more. You have some supporting notes there, the patchouli, the vetiver. But what those notes really do is gives the fragrance more life. It gives you more complexity, so that as it's drying down and you smell it, you get that overall woodiness, but you can't necessarily pinpoint exactly which wood it is that you're smelling, because they're all just blended together very nicely. With Salvo, it's a little easier to pick out some of the notes, the way that they're coming across. Again, that vanilla sort of amber scent profile, you can pick it out a little easier here in the dry down. That creamy sort of lavender and sandalwood combination in Salvo as it dries sticks out a little bit more. It's not quite as blended together. But I do want to say and reiterate this once more, that this is splitting hairs. They are extremely close. So much so that the first time I opened this up and I sprayed it on, I was gobsmacked. I was just kind of taken aback, like, whoa, 25 bucks, I think, is what I paid for this? Okay. And off a strip, it is kind of silly how close these are. It's really only once you spray it on skin and legitimately do this deal back and forth that you start to pick out little nuances. So I want you to really understand that this is a fragrance that when you spray it on, you're realistically not going to be like, oh, that 5% difference or whatever makes all the difference in the world. Most people are gonna spray this on and just be like, all right, Sauvage Elixir. This is a fantastic clone, really exceeded my expectations. I didn't expect this to be quite as nice as it is. I mean, obviously I expected it to smell kind of like Sauvage Elixir, but I didn't expect it to be as close as it is. Because in spite of those differences I brought up, they are truly minor. And it's one of the deals, like I've said a few times, where you have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And realistically, who is ever gonna do that except for somebody doing a video about it to tell you what the minor differences are. So there we go, Salvo Elixir, very, very impressive, very inexpensive, but smells extremely similar to Sauvage Elixir. And it really is splitting hairs, as I've said. The differences that I mentioned here are not gonna mean anything to most people. This you can spray on and get yourself some Sauvage Elixir on the cheap. I say it's just as good as Assad, if not better, just as good as Enigma Un as well. Truth be told, all three of those Sauvage Elixir alternatives are top-notch as far as the overall clone landscape goes. Just really, really good stuff. So that'll do it for Salvo Elixir. Extremely, extremely impressive. Don't know why I held off on getting it until now, but there you go. Another alternative to Sauvage Elixir that's just right up there toward the top. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video, or this is the extra channel. Maybe I won't. See you guys later.